Elon Musk had just finished a long day at Tesla's headquarters in Palo Alto and decided to grab a quick bite at a nearby McDonald's before heading home. He wasn't looking for anything special, just a moment of peace, maybe a quick burger, and some fries to unwind. But little did he know this visit would turn into something completely unexpected. As he walked into the familiar fast food chain, he noticed something strange. There, behind the counter, was a man in a McDonald's uniform. His face looked somewhat familiar. Elon squinted his eyes, trying to place him, then it hit him. The man standing before him was none other than John, a former Tesla software engineer. Elon couldn't believe it. He had worked with John years ago, when the company was just getting started with its ambitious electric vehicle projects. John had been an integral part of Tesla's software development team, the one who helped design key features for their self-driving cars. He was brilliant, dedicated, and passionate about pushing the boundaries of technology. But here he was, flipping burgers and handing out fries, with no trace of the ambition and energy he once had at Tesla. Elon stood there for a moment, unsure of how to react. Was this a mistake? Had something gone horribly wrong in John's life? He took a deep breath and approached the counter, trying to appear casual, but his mind was racing. "John?" Elon asked, his voice a mixture of surprise and curiosity. The man behind the counter looked up, and for a brief second there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. His face softened, but the shock was evident. "Elon," John said, his voice almost hesitant. "Wow, I didn't expect to see you here." The air between them was thick with unspoken questions, as Elon tried to process the situation. John had been one of the brightest minds at Tesla, and now here he was working at McDonald's, likely toiling away just like anyone else who needed to make ends meet. It didn't make sense. How are you doing, John?" Elon asked, unable to hide his concern. John hesitated for a moment, glancing around at the bustling restaurant. "I'm getting by, just trying to keep things together, you know." Elon felt a pit form in his stomach. What could have happened to lead a talented engineer like John to end up in this position? A series of thoughts raced through his mind. Had Tesla let him down? Had the industry, the world of high-tech, turned its back on him? Elon couldn't help but wonder what had led John to this moment, and more importantly, what could he do to help? "Listen," Elon said, leaning in slightly. "Let's talk after your shift. I want to hear what happened, and if you're open to it, I might have a proposition for you." John gave him a small, uncertain smile. "Yeah, sure, I'll see you then." As Elon walked away, his mind was already working overtime. He had been through countless challenges in his career, and this one, the sight of a former colleague in such a compromising position, was something he couldn't ignore. It wasn't just about offering help, it was about understanding the bigger picture. What went wrong, and what could he do to make it right? But before he could dive deeper into his thoughts, he paused and turned back toward the counter. "Hey," Elon said, his voice a bit softer now. "Don't worry, John. Things have a way of turning around." John gave a small nod, though his eyes betrayed a sense of uncertainty, and that was just the beginning. Stay tuned for the next chapter as Elon Musk uncovers the shocking truth behind John's fall from grace, and what happens next will leave you speechless. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and join us as the story unfolds. After their brief encounter at McDonald's, Elon couldn't shake the image of John standing behind the counter, dressed in the fast food uniform, looking far removed from the ambitious engineer he once knew. Elon had always been surrounded by brilliant minds, but John was different. He had been one of the rare few who could think outside the box and challenge even Elon himself when it came to bold ideas. Later that evening, Elon and John sat down at a nearby cafe, away from the bustle of McDonald's. Elon could see the exhaustion in John's eyes, but he also saw something else, something hidden beneath the surface. It was as if John was trying to keep the weight of his own story buried. But Elon wasn't one to let things slide. "So, John," Elon began, sipping his coffee, "you were one of Tesla's brightest. You helped build some of the systems that set us apart. What happened? Why are you working at McDonald's?" John stared into his coffee cup, seemingly lost in thought for a moment. He sighed as if gathering the strength to relive a chapter of his life that he'd rather forget. "It's a long story," John began slowly. "I started at Tesla full of passion. I wanted to make a real impact on the world, and for a while it felt like I was doing that. We were pushing the envelope, developing software that was changing the future of transportation. But things changed, the company grew, and with growth came more politics, more red tape. Ideas were stifled, and no matter how much I fought for innovation, I felt like I was being pushed out." Elon listened intently, his face softening with empathy. John had always been the kind of person who lived and breathed his work. To hear that his passion was crushed by the very company he helped build was hard to fathom. "I didn't want to leave, but they made it clear my vision didn't align with theirs anymore. It was either accept it or get out," John continued, his voice heavy with regret. "So I left, but it wasn't easy. I thought I could just jump into another high-tech company, maybe something innovative like Tesla, but the reality is, no one was really willing to take a chance on me." Elon sat quietly, absorbing John's words. The tech industry was ruthless, and even someone as talented as John could find himself lost in a sea of talented engineers and entrepreneurs. But working at McDonald's? That was a harsh reality check for someone who had been at the forefront of cutting-edge technology. John ran a hand through his hair, his frustration mounting. "I didn't know what to do. I tried everything. But with each rejection, the weight of failure grew heavier. Eventually, I just had to take whatever job I could find to pay the bills, and here I am." Elon's mind was racing. He understood the pressures of the industry, the constant grind, the never-ending pursuit of perfection. But what John was describing went beyond typical corporate struggle. This wasn't just about a fallen career. It was about a man who had poured his soul into something only to be discarded when the company's priorities changed. "So you just gave up?" Elon asked, his voice a little sharper than he intended. John looked up, meeting Elon's gaze. His eyes were filled with a mixture of bitterness and sadness. "I didn't give up, Elon. I'm not a quitter. But it's hard to keep going when everything you believed in is torn down. The world isn't always as kind to dreamers as it should be, and I guess I'm still trying to figure out where I fit in now." The words hung in the air, and Elon could see the struggle within John. He wasn't just dealing with professional failure. He was dealing with a deep sense of disillusionment, a loss of belief in the very system he had once been a part of. Elon leaned back in his chair, processing everything John had shared. He didn't believe in giving up on people, especially talented ones like John. There was still something in him, something he could tap into, something that could help John rise. From the ashes of his disillusionment, "I'm sorry, John," Elon said quietly, breaking the silence. "I didn't realize things were this bad. But listen, I know what you're capable of, and I'm not about to let you throw away your talents like this. We've got a lot of work to do at Tesla, and I think you're the missing piece we need." John blinked, his eyebrows furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" Elon smiled. "I mean, I'm offering you a chance to come back, not just for the sake of it, but because I believe you can help us build something that will change the world. This time, it won't be about corporate politics. It'll be about real innovation. Your vision. Tesla needs people who can think. Like you, John. You still have so much to offer. Let me help you get back on your feet." John sat there, stunned. His mind was racing. The offer was unexpected, and yet something about it felt like the lifeline he had been waiting for. Could he really go back? Could he find the spark he once had, or would he be walking back into a company that had once abandoned him? The silence between them stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happened when two people understood the gravity of what was being discussed. Finally, John spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, Elon. I've been burned before. I don't know if I can trust the system again." Elon nodded, his expression softening. "I get it. But I'm telling you, John, this isn't about the system. This is about you. I believe in what you can do, and this time we do it on your terms. No red tape, no compromises, just you, me, and the future." John looked down at his hands, deep in thought. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was his chance to turn everything around. Don't miss the next chapter, where Elon and John make a bold decision that will change everything. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on this incredible journey. The days that followed were a whirlwind for John. After his conversation with Elon, everything felt both overwhelming and exhilarating. He hadn't expected to be offered a second chance, especially not from someone as high profile as Elon Musk. It had been years since he'd even thought about rejoining Tesla, and the idea of working alongside Elon again stirred a mix of excitement and skepticism within him. Over the next few days, Elon kept in touch with John. They exchanged emails, calls, and even scheduled another meeting to discuss the specifics. But as John sat in his small apartment, staring at his phone, he couldn't help but feel torn. His mind kept circling back to the painful memories of how things had ended at Tesla. The late nights, the constant pressure, the way he felt like a cog in a machine that no longer cared about innovation, but rather about efficiency and profit margins. "Am I ready to go back?" John muttered to himself. "Or is this just going to end in the same way?" John's internal conflict only deepened as he thought about his options. He'd spent so many years chasing the dream of working at Tesla, believing that he was making a difference. But somewhere along the way, the dream had turned into a nightmare. Now, after everything he'd been through, working at McDonald's, struggling to keep his head above water, he wasn't sure he could trust the system again. Meanwhile, Elon was persistent. He sent John messages urging him to meet, to talk things through, and to figure out what his next steps might look like. Elon's passion for innovation and his belief in John's potential hadn't wavered in the slightest. He had a vision, and he was convinced that John was the key to bringing it to life. Finally, after a few days of back-and-forth messages, John agreed to meet Elon at Tesla's headquarters in Palo Alto. The decision weighed heavily on him, but part of him couldn't ignore the fact that this was the opportunity he had been waiting for, the chance to prove that he wasn't finished, that he still had something left to offer. The meeting at Tesla's headquarters was both exciting and nerve-wracking for John. As he walked through the sleek modern building, he couldn't help but notice how much had changed since he had last been here. The place was alive with innovation, with engineers huddled in meetings, developers typing away at their computers, and Tesla's ambitious projects taking shape around every corner. Elon greeted him warmly, his usual energy and enthusiasm contagious. He immediately led John to a conference room, where they sat down to talk. "I'm glad you're here, John," Elon said, offering a seat. "This is the first step in what I believe will be a game changer for Tesla. We've got some big plans, and I need people like you. People who can think outside the box, who aren't afraid to break the mold." John listened intently, his anxiety slowly starting to dissipate as he heard Elon's vision for the future. It wasn't just about making better cars or improving the existing technologies. It was about pushing boundaries even further, creating products that would revolutionize how people lived and interacted with technology. It was exactly the kind of challenge that John had once thrived on. But then, as the conversation continued, a lingering doubt crept back into John's mind. "Elon, I want to believe in this," John said cautiously, his voice steady but carrying a hint of skepticism. "But I've been burned before. I've seen how things can change, how priorities shift, how creative ideas get pushed aside for the sake of efficiency and profit. Are you sure this time will be different?" Elon paused for a moment, looking John in the eye. His gaze was unwavering. "John, I know what you've been through, and I'm not asking you to trust the system. I'm asking you to trust me. This time it's about the work we want to create, not the politics or bureaucracy. You and I will build something new. Together, something that matters." The sincerity in Elon's voice hit John hard. There was no denying it. Elon was speaking from the heart. He had always been a visionary, a man driven by passion and purpose, and in this moment, John felt a flicker of hope rise within him once more. "I know it's not going to be easy," Elon continued, "but I'm not looking for someone who just fits. And I want someone who can challenge me, challenge all of us. We've got huge plans, John. And I know that with you on board, we can make them happen." John sat quietly for a moment, letting the words sink in. The fear, the doubt, the uncertainty, it was all still there. But there was also something else. the possibility of redemption, of returning to a place where he could make a real impact. Tesla had once been his dream. Maybe, just maybe, it could be his future again. "All right," John said, his voice firm. "I'm in. But I want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. No compromises, no shortcuts." Elon smiled. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The deal was made. John would return to Tesla, not as a cog in the machine, but as a key player in Elon's vision for the future. They discussed potential projects ranging from advancements in AI to breakthroughs in autonomous vehicles, but, more importantly, they both understood that this was a second chance, one that came with high stakes. John had to prove himself again, but this time the stakes felt different. He wasn't just fighting for a job, he was fighting for his place in the world of innovation. As John walked out of the Tesla building that day, he felt a rush of emotions. It wasn't just excitement or nervousness, it was a sense of renewal. For the first time in years, he could see a path forward, one that was filled with challenges, yes, but also with purpose. But even as hope flickered, John couldn't shake. The question that lingered at the back of his mind: could he really trust Elon and Tesla again? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where John faces the challenge of reintegrating into Tesla's high-pressure world. Will the past come back to haunt him, or will he rise to the occasion? Make sure to subscribe to see how this journey unfolds. It had been a week since John made the decision to return to Tesla, and the weight of his choice was starting to sink in. He had always been driven by a desire to create, to push the limits of what was possible, but now he was back in a place that had once crushed his spirit. Could he really make a difference again? Could he find his place in this new era of Tesla, one that was even more ambitious and complex than before? John's first day back was a whirlwind. He arrived early, feeling the familiar nervous energy in his chest. Tesla's headquarters felt different. There were new faces, new teams, and a heightened sense of urgency in the air. It was clear that the company was no longer the scrappy startup it once was. It had grown into a global powerhouse, with all the pressures and challenges that came with it. Elon greeted him personally, as always, with his trademark enthusiasm. "Welcome back, John. We've got a lot of work to do, but I know you're up for the challenge." John nodded, though part of him was still hesitant. The Tesla he once knew had been full of camaraderie and shared purpose, but now it felt like there was something different, a sense of competition, of personal ambition that hadn't been there before. Was it the right environment for him? The first few days were a blur of meetings, introductions, and getting up to speed with the latest projects. John had barely enough time to catch his breath before he was thrown into a major task, an ambitious new software upgrade for Tesla's autonomous driving system. Elon had promised him creative freedom, but the pressure to deliver was palpable. As the team gathered for their first brainstorming session, John noticed a few familiar faces in the room, including some engineers he had worked with during his first tenure at Tesla. They greeted him warmly, but John could sense the underlying tension. Everyone was eager to impress Elon and rise through the ranks, and it wasn't long before the discussion shifted from innovation to competing ideas, with each person vying for Elon's attention. John sat back in his chair, listening intently, but his mind was elsewhere. He remembered the time when Tesla's focus had been purely on pushing the boundaries of technology. Back then, the team had worked together to build something extraordinary, something that could change the world. Now it felt as if the focus had shifted. Innovation was still important, but so was climbing the corporate ladder. After the meeting, Elon pulled John aside. "How's it going so far?" Elon asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp, as if he could sense John's unease. "It's different," John replied, choosing his words carefully. "It feels like the stakes are higher, and the pressure is intense. It's not the same as before." Elon nodded, understanding. "Yeah, it's not the same. We've grown, John, but I need you to help me remind everyone what Tesla was really about. The mission, the passion. We can't lose sight of that." John appreciated Elon's words, but deep down he wasn't sure how to recapture the magic that had once made Tesla a place of true innovation. The world had changed, and so had Tesla. The question now was whether he could change with it. As the weeks passed, John began to immerse himself in the work, taking on a leadership role in the development of the new software upgrade. The project was challenging, but it was also the kind of work he loved. It required creativity, problem-solving, and pushing the limits of what Tesla's technology could do. But even with the exciting opportunities, the environment remained intense, and the pressure to deliver weighed heavily on him. One afternoon, John found himself in a heated discussion with a senior engineer, Thomas, about the direction of the new software. Thomas was focused on the technical aspects, fine-tuning the algorithms, improving the data processing. John, however, was more concerned with the broader vision, how the software could improve the driving experience, how it could make Tesla cars safer and more intuitive. "You're thinking too big, John," Thomas said, shaking his head. "We need to focus on the specifics first, make sure everything works. We can't afford to get lost in the bigger picture." John's frustration bubbled to the surface. "No, Thomas, we can't just keep improving the same thing over and over. We need to rethink how autonomous driving works. We need to make it more human, more natural." The exchange grew more heated, with Elon watching from the sidelines. Finally, Elon stepped in. All right, Elon said, raising his hand to signal the end of the debate. "John's right. We need both. We need to focus on the details. But we can't lose sight of the big picture. Let's take a step back and find a way to bring those two together. Innovation doesn't happen when we're stuck in our own little silos." The room fell silent, and for a moment, John and Thomas exchanged looks. It was clear that there was a difference in how they approached the work, but for the first time in a long while, John felt like he was on the right path. Elon had given him the room to challenge the status quo, to push for something greater than just incremental progress. As the team continued to work on the software, John found himself in the thick of it, coming up with creative solutions and ideas that were both bold and practical. The more he worked, the more he began to rediscover the sense of purpose that had once driven him. This was the kind of challenge he had been searching for, the kind that required more than just technical expertise. It required vision, creativity, and a belief that the future could be different. But even as John started to find his footing, again the pressure continued to mount. The competition within the team grew more intense, and it wasn't long before John realized that he wasn't just battling external challenges, he was also battling his own self-doubt. Could he truly live up to Elon's expectations? Could he create something that would leave a lasting impact? As the days passed, John's determination only grew. He knew this was his chance to prove not just to Elon, but to himself, that he still had what it took to innovate at the highest level. But there were still many obstacles ahead. Would he be able to navigate the political landscape of Tesla? Could he overcome the doubts and fears that haunted him every day? The journey ahead would be more difficult than he had imagined, but one thing was certain. John wasn't about to back down. Stay tuned for the next chapter as John faces his first major challenge in his return to Tesla. Will he rise above the competition, or will the pressure prove to be too much? Make sure to subscribe to find out what happens next. As the weeks turned into months, John became more entrenched in his role at Tesla. The pressure was building steadily, and every decision he made felt like it carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. The projects were bigger than he'd ever imagined, and the stakes higher than anything he'd dealt with before. But despite the mounting challenges, John began to feel the exhilaration of working alongside a team of brilliant minds, all pushing the boundaries of what technology could achieve. Yet in the quiet moments when he sat alone in his office late at night, doubts lingered. Was he truly ready for this? Had he made the right decision returning to Tesla? Elon had promised him creative freedom, but it seemed like every day the system, everything from corporate politics to team rivalries, was more suffocating than the day before. The final test was coming, an upcoming presentation to Tesla's board of directors, investors, and the entire leadership team, where John would need to present the progress of the autonomous driving software he had been leading. It was the moment that would either confirm his place at Tesla or force him to walk away for good. One afternoon, a few days before the presentation, John received an urgent message from Elon. "Meet me in the conference room. I need to talk. To you about something important." The sense of unease in John's chest grew. He walked to the meeting room, already rehearsing in his mind what he would say if things didn't go well. Had he made a critical error? Was the software project doomed? Elon's words still echoed in his head. "This is your chance to prove yourself. You can't afford to fail." When John arrived, Elon was waiting for him, a serious expression on his face. There was no sign of the usual enthusiasm that Elon often carried with him, and it only deepened John's concern. "John," Elon started, his voice calm but stern. "I've been reviewing the progress on the software, and I need to ask you something. Do you believe in this? Really believe in it? Because I need you to know. We can't afford to fall short on this." John's heart raced. "Of course I believe in it, Elon. I've put everything into this. The teams work day and night. Everyone is on board with the vision. We're not just building a car, we're building the future." Elon raised an eyebrow. "I know, but that's the problem. The pressure's too high. The investors are expecting something extraordinary. And frankly, we're running out of time." For a moment, John could only stare at Elon. His mind raced. This was it, the moment when everything could fall apart. All the doubt, the long nights, the tense moments of competition and frustration, it all came crashing down on him. He wasn't sure how much more of the pressure he could take. He thought back to the simpler days when he had been working at McDonald's. Those days had felt less complicated, despite everything he had gone through. "Are you saying you don't believe in the team?" John finally asked, his voice tense. Unsure if he was hearing the right thing, Elon's eyes softened, but his tone remained firm. "It's not about that, but the stakes are high. You've got one shot at this, John. If this doesn't go well, if the board doesn't see the progress they want, everything you've worked for, everything we've worked for, will be in jeopardy." John felt a knot tighten in his stomach. His mind flashed back to the first time he'd left Tesla. The promises, the dreams of changing the world. It had all felt so real, so close. But now, standing here in this high-pressure room, the reality of what he was up against hit him like a ton of bricks. "I won't let you down, Elon," John said, the words feeling almost like a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "I'll do whatever it takes." The days leading up to the presentation were nothing short of chaotic. John poured every ounce of his energy into preparing. The team worked tirelessly to perfect the software, to make sure everything was flawless. But as the presentation day approached, John found himself questioning everything. The weight of Elon's words continued to haunt him. Could he really live up to the expectations? Could he pull this off, or had he reached the limit of his abilities? Finally, the day arrived. The conference room was filled with the most powerful people in Tesla, the investors, the board members, and key figures from all departments. Elon was seated at the head of the table, looking as calm and composed as ever, but John could feel the tension in the room, the silent judgment of every person waiting to see what he had to show. John stood at the front of the room, his hands shaking as he set up his presentation. The room was silent, and for a brief moment everything seemed to freeze. Then he clicked the remote and the screen came to life with the latest demonstration of Tesla's autonomous driving system. He spoke with conviction, walking the room through the progress the team had made, explaining how the new software would revolutionize not only the Tesla experience, but the entire automotive industry. As he spoke, he saw some of the board members nodding while others remained skeptical. But the most important person in the room, Elon, was watching intently, his expression unreadable. Then, as the demonstration progressed, something unexpected happened. A glitch, one small unnoticed error, caused the software to malfunction for just a brief second. John's heart stopped. He could feel the room shift, the air growing thick with anticipation. "Shit," he muttered under his breath, trying to regain control. Elon stood up suddenly, his eyes locking with John's. For a moment, the world felt like it was moving in slow motion. The pressure, the expectations, everything came to a head in that instant. John's pulse pounded in his ears and his thoughts scattered. This could be it, the moment he'd feared. But then something incredible happened. Elon stepped forward, addressing the room with his usual confidence. "It's okay," he said, raising his hand to calm the room. "This is exactly what happens when you push the limits. Mistakes happen, But let me tell you something, this is a team that will get it right no matter what. We don't give up because of a small glitch. We learn from it. We improve. John couldn't believe it. Elon wasn't angry, wasn't disappointed. Instead, he stood up for the team, standing by them in their moment of weakness. Elon turned to John with a grin. This is the kind of challenge that defines us. We've still got a lot of work to do, but I believe in you, John. I believe in this team. We're not done yet. The weight that had been on John's chest seemed to lift just a little. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But in that moment, he realized that failure wasn't the end. It was part of the journey. And with Elon by his side, maybe he could still make a difference. Stay tuned for the next chapter as John faces the aftermath of the presentation. Will the team pull together, or will the pressure of perfection tear them apart? Subscribe now to find out how this intense journey continues. The aftermath of the presentation left John in a whirlwind of emotions. The software glitch, though, minor, had been enough to shake his confidence, but Elon's support had lifted him in ways he couldn't quite put into words. The board had left the meeting with mixed reactions, but Elon's speech had been the turning point. It wasn't just about the technical aspects anymore. It was about perseverance, about refusing to accept failure as an option. The days following the presentation were a blur of intense work and analysis. John found himself replaying the moment over and over in his mind. The glitch, the unexpected failure, and yet, the resilience of the team. He kept hearing Elon's words echoing in his head, reminding him that failure was simply a stepping stone to greater success. Over the next few weeks, John found a new clarity. He had entered this journey thinking that perfection was the goal, that every move had to be flawless. But through the struggle, he realized that it wasn't perfection that mattered. It was the ability to adapt, to learn from the setbacks, and to push forward despite them. The passion and the mission were what had brought him back to Tesla in the first place, and that hadn't changed. Elon was right. Innovation didn't happen by playing it safe. The path to success was paved with mistakes and lessons learned along the way. The key was to stay in the game, to keep moving forward no matter the obstacles. With the glitch now fixed and the software better than ever, Tesla's autonomous system was ready for another round of testing. John felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that the work they were doing wasn't just about creating the next big product. It was about changing the future. And in that moment, he understood why he had come back. The vision that had once captivated him was still alive, still worth fighting for. One evening, after another long day of testing and fine-tuning, John sat in his office, looking out the window at the sprawling Tesla campus. The lights of the factory in the distance twinkled in the night, a reminder of all the progress they had made, and all the work still to be done. He thought about his time away from Tesla, working at McDonald's, living a life that had felt so distant from the world of technology and innovation. Back then he had felt lost, like his potential was going to waste. But now, sitting here at Tesla once again, he saw the journey for what it had been, a necessary detour. His time at McDonald's had been a wake-up call. It had reminded him that success wasn't handed to anyone on a silver platter. It was earned through hard work, through dedication, and through resilience. Those lessons had stayed with him, and they had prepared him for the challenges he now faced. And then there was Elon, the man who had built Tesla from the ground up, who had faced his own share of failures and setbacks. Elon's willingness to stand by his team, to embrace the glitches and imperfections, was a lesson John would never forget. It was a reminder that failure didn't define a person. It was how you responded to failure that mattered. As he sat there, contemplating everything that had happened, John realized that the true meaning of success wasn't about avoiding mistakes or chasing perfection. It was about finding the strength to rise after each fall and pushing forward with the belief that something better was always on the horizon. The next morning, John met with his team. They had worked tirelessly on the autonomous driving system, and it was time to take it to the next level. As they gathered around the conference table, John felt a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. It was the kind of environment he had missed, the kind where everyone was working toward the same goal, not just personal advancement, but something bigger. "I know things haven't been easy," John began, looking at his team, "but I believe in each and every one of you. We've come this far because we've pushed each other, and we've learned from our mistakes. We're not just building a car, we're building the future." The team nodded, and John could feel the renewed energy in the room. The pressure wasn't gone, but it didn't feel as heavy anymore. They were ready. As the days turned into weeks, the project began to take shape. The software was fine-tuned, tested, and finally ready for a larger rollout. The autonomous driving system, which had once seemed like an unattainable dream, was now a reality. And, with each milestone reached, John grew more confident, not in the technology itself, but in the people behind it. John knew that Tesla's future was still uncertain. There were countless challenges ahead, and competition was fierce. But he had learned that innovation wasn't just about the destination, it was about the journey, and he was proud to be a part of it. Closing engagement. As the journey at Tesla continued, John felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He had faced his fears, overcome self-doubt, and found his place again in the company he had helped build. He had learned that setbacks weren't failures, but opportunities to grow. And most importantly, he had rediscovered his passion for the work he was doing. Now, as he stood on the edge of something extraordinary, John couldn't help but wonder, what was next? The road ahead was filled with possibilities, and he was ready to embrace whatever came his way. So what do you think? If you were in John's shoes, would you have made the same choice to return to Tesla? Or would you have stayed in the comfort of a simpler life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to share this story with your friends, because sometimes the greatest challenges lead to the most incredible rewards. Make sure to subscribe to continue following John's journey and to see where this story goes next. The weeks following the successful launch of Tesla's autonomous driving system brought a new level of recognition and validation for John. The pressure of the past months had dissipated, replaced by a sense of accomplishment. The software was working seamlessly, and Tesla's investors and leadership team were more confident than ever in the company's future. But as much as success felt sweet, there was something that still gnawed at John. The question that had followed him for months. What's next? Lingered in his mind. He had returned to Tesla, achieved what many thought was impossible, and now the path forward seemed unclear. As John sat in his office late one evening, looking out at the Tesla factory and reflecting on everything that had happened, the reality of his journey settled in. It wasn't just about the work or the technology, it was about growth, personal growth. The lessons he had learned from his mistakes, his time at McDonald's and his return to Tesla, had reshaped him as a person. He no longer saw challenges as roadblocks, but as opportunities to learn and evolve. What would you do now? He thought to himself. He had built something monumental, but the question remained, had he truly found what he was searching for? A few days later, Elon called John into his office. The moment was familiar, yet there was something different in the air. The usual confident, larger-than-life persona of Elon Musk had a rare touch of solemnity. John could sense it immediately. Something important was coming. "John," Elon began, leaning back in his chair, "I've been thinking a lot about your journey. From McDonald's to Tesla. That's a story a lot of people can relate to. But it's also more than just a story. It's a testament to what resilience, passion, and hard work can do. It's about taking risks, embracing change, and knowing when to step forward and when to step back." John shifted in his seat, unsure where this conversation was heading. "I want you to think about something," Elon continued. "We're on the brink of something huge here at Tesla, but it's not just about the cars. It's about the future of energy, sustainability, and how we're going to change the world. And we need people who understand that big picture, people who are willing to take on new roles and lead initiatives that matter." John felt the weight of Elon's words. This was more than just a job now. It was about a legacy, a future that transcended individual success. "I've been in your shoes, John," Elon said, his voice growing more earnest. "I've had moments where I've felt lost, where I didn't know where I was headed next. But the thing is, the world doesn't wait for you to figure it out. You've got to make your own path." John was silent for a moment, taking in what Elon was saying. He had faced plenty of doubts, but what Elon was talking about was a new challenge, one that could define the next chapter of his life. Elon, I'm grateful for everything. The chance to return to Tesla, the opportunity to lead the autonomous driving project, but I don't know what's next for me. I've done a lot of what I set out to do. But is it enough? John asked, the uncertainty in his voice clearer than ever. Elon looked at him, eyes narrowed in thought. Then, with a smile, he said, You've just started, John. There's no finish line. In fact, the real work begins now. The world's watching, and the future is ours to shape. So what will you do with it? John walked out of Elon's office with a feeling he couldn't quite explain. The weight of the conversation was still heavy on his shoulders. He had proven himself, but now the road ahead seemed both terrifying and exhilarating. Elon had given him the freedom to think beyond the software project, to think about the kind of leader he wanted to be, and the kind of future he wanted to help create. It was time to face the truth. He couldn't stand still. He had to keep moving, keep challenging himself. Tesla had given him the platform, but the next step, that was up to him. As the days passed, John began to focus on something bigger. He had always thought that his journey was about the technology, the cars, the breakthroughs. But now it felt like it was about people, about inspiring others to take that same leap of faith he had taken. It was about mentorship, growth, and leading by example. It was about showing others that, no matter where you start, it's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. He began talking to his colleagues, his team, and even the interns who worked at Tesla. He wanted to know what drove them, what fears held them back, and what they hoped to achieve in the future. Their stories mirrored his own. Doubts, struggles, moments of uncertainty, but also a deep desire to make a difference. John's next move was clear. He would focus on fostering the next generation of innovators at Tesla. The future wasn't just about technology. It was about building a culture of resilience, creativity, and leadership. Engage with us. What do you think John should do next? So is mentoring the next big step in his journey, or is there something else he should focus on? Do you think the next chapter of Tesla will be led by people like John, who have had real-life challenges, or by those who come from more traditional paths? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this part of the journey, make sure to share this story with your friends. We'll be continuing this incredible journey with John as he shapes not only Tesla's future, but his own. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more of John's remarkable journey. The best is yet to come. The months that followed were nothing short of transformative. John had fully embraced his new role, not just as an engineer, but as a mentor and a leader at Tesla. He knew that the next phase of his journey was no longer about proving himself. It was about helping others prove to themselves that they could make an impact. And in doing so, he realized he was laying the groundwork for something much larger than himself. Tesla had always been a place that thrived on innovation, but the company had reached a point where it was no longer just about new products or software. The true value of Tesla lay in its people, the dreamers, the risk-takers, the ones who weren't afraid to fail. John wanted to ensure that those who followed in his footsteps would have the same opportunities he had. One chilly morning, John stood in front of a group of interns, new hires, and seasoned employees alike at Tesla's annual Innovation Summit. He had been asked to speak about his journey, about the lessons he had learned, the setbacks he had faced, and the importance of perseverance. But as he stood there, looking out at the eager faces, John felt a deep sense of responsibility. This wasn't just about telling his story anymore. It was about encouraging them to take the next step in their own journeys. Some of you may have heard my story by now, he began, voice steady but full of emotion. You know, I started out in a very different place. I was working at McDonald's. I felt stuck. But sometimes life has a funny way of showing you that you can't wait for things to happen. You have to make them happen. John paused and looked around the room. He could see the doubt in some eyes, the same doubt he had once carried within himself. But there was something else too, a spark of curiosity, a hunger to succeed. He knew they were listening, and he knew they were ready for the same challenge he had faced. I've been where you are, John continued. I've struggled with feeling lost. I've questioned whether I could really make an impact, but here's the thing. If I can do it, so can you. It's not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to start. It's about learning from failure and letting it fuel you. He watched as the audience absorbed his words. Some nodded, others took notes, and some simply sat back, deep in thought. John's speech wasn't about giving them all the answers. It was about giving them the courage to search for their own answers. After the summit, John was approached by several young engineers, eager to learn more from him. They had been inspired by his story, but more importantly, they wanted to know how to overcome their own fears and doubts. John could see in their eyes the same desire he had felt years ago when he was just starting out. It was an energy that fueled him, making him realize how much work there was still to do. He started meeting with them regularly, offering advice on everything from problem-solving to overcoming obstacles. He emphasized the importance of collaboration, creativity, and taking risks. He shared his own experiences, the highs and the lows, and encouraged them to embrace their failures as he had done. For John, these conversations became an essential part of his new role. He saw the potential in each of them, whether they had just started at Tesla or were long-time employees seeking new directions. He believed that the success of Tesla wasn't only about the technology, it was about the people who made it all possible. But as much as John enjoyed mentoring, he couldn't ignore the bigger question still lingering in his mind. What was his next big move? He had come a long way since working at McDonald's. He had built groundbreaking technology, mentored a new generation of engineers, and even had the chance to sit in the same room as Elon Musk discussing the future of Tesla. But there was still a part of him that felt incomplete. The challenge, the adventure, he wanted to push himself further. Elon, of course, had always encouraged John to embrace the uncertainty of the future. Don't let the fear of the unknown hold you back, he had told him many times. And yet, John couldn't help but wonder what new venture he could pursue within Tesla, or outside of it, that would give him that sense of purpose he was searching for. One night, after another long day of meetings and strategy sessions, John sat alone in his office. He stared at the same window where months ago he had gazed out at the Tesla campus in a moment of reflection. But now, things felt different. He could feel the weight of his decision coming, the decision that would shape the next chapter of his life. What if the next big leap wasn't within the world of Tesla's engineering? What if it was something entirely new? John thought about Elon's vision, his belief that Tesla's mission wasn't just about electric cars, but about energy, sustainability, and shaping the future of humanity. What if John could take that vision to new heights, lead a new initiative, and push the boundaries of what was possible? Engagement. And now we turn it over to you. Do you think John should stay at Tesla and continue his mentorship, helping shape the future of the next generation of engineers? Or do you think his next move should be something even more groundbreaking, taking on a new challenge beyond what he's already accomplished? What would you do if you were in John's shoes? We want to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to share this chapter with your friends. The journey isn't over yet, and we'd love for you to join us as we continue to explore what happens next in John's incredible story. Hit that subscribe button for the next exciting chapter in John's journey, because the best is yet to come. The days after the summit were filled with a newfound energy. John had made an impact on his colleagues and the young engineers at Tesla, and he knew that the future of the company was in capable hands. However, despite the success, his mind was still restless, still grappling with the question that had been weighing on him for months. What's next? He had led breakthrough projects, mentored the next generation of leaders, and built the very systems that would drive Tesla forward into the future. But as he reflected on all of this, he realized something fundamental. His journey had always been about more than just the technology or the company. It had been about growth, reinvention, and discovering new possibilities. He couldn't stay complacent, not when there were bigger, more ambitious goals calling to him. John had a new sense of clarity, something that had been missing for a long time. He needed to step outside of his comfort zone and embrace the next phase of his personal evolution. He didn't just want to be a part of Tesla's history, he wanted to create history. It was a crisp, clear afternoon when John finally decided to sit down with Elon. Their conversations had always been candid, open, and filled with the kind of creative energy that made anything seem possible. But this conversation felt different. It was the culmination of everything John had learned, everything he had overcome, and everything he was ready to embrace. "Elon," John began, his voice steady but full of purpose, "I've been thinking a lot about my future here. I've learned so much, and I've loved working with you and the team, but I feel like I need to take a step into something different. I'm ready to take on a new challenge, something beyond what we're already doing here." Elon looked at him, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I knew this moment was coming. You've pushed yourself hard, John, but you're not alone. The work here is bigger than just you or me. It's about creating the world we want to live in, and that's a job that will never be finished. So, what are you thinking? What's this new challenge you're looking for?" John paused, taking a deep breath. "I think it's time for me to explore new opportunities, either inside Tesla or beyond. I want to contribute to a project that's not just about products, but about revolutionizing entire industries. I want to build something that impacts people's lives on a larger scale, something that goes beyond what we've done with autonomous driving or electric cars. I want to push the boundaries of energy, sustainability, and the future of our planet." Elon nodded thoughtfully, his gaze unwavering. "You know, John, that's the kind of thinking that will change the world. I can see it in you. You've learned to build, to inspire, and to innovate. But now it's time to shift gears, to think even bigger, and I think you're ready for it." The conversation marked the beginning of a new chapter for John. He had always admired Elon's ability to take risks, to envision a future that no one else could see, and to build towards it. It was time for John to follow that same path, to make his own impact, to find his own way to contribute to the world's future. And so, John began exploring new avenues for innovation. He spent countless hours researching clean energy solutions, sustainable farming practices, and alternative ways to tackle climate change. He knew that his next step wouldn't just be about creating the next big product, it would be about creating a legacy of change, something that would last far beyond his time at Tesla. After months of research, conversations with leading innovators, and aligning his values with the challenges of the world, John finally decided on the path he would take. He was going to start a new initiative, an independent project aimed at solving the global energy crisis through innovative technologies and sustainable practices. The project would not only focus on creating renewable energy sources, but also on transforming entire industries that were dependent on fossil fuels. It would be his way of continuing Tesla's mission, but with a broader focus on the global scale. It wasn't going to be easy. He knew that. But for the first time in years, John felt a sense of excitement, of purpose. This was bigger than anything he had ever done before, and he was ready for the challenge. Closing engagement. And so the story of John's journey came, full circle. From the man who once worked at McDonald's, uncertain about his future, to the visionary leader at Tesla who had changed the world of electric vehicles, John's path had led him to a place where he could do more, be more, and impact more. He had learned that success wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about discovering what you truly care about and using your skills to make a real difference. Now, as he prepared to embark on his next venture, he knew that the road ahead would be filled with new challenges, new obstacles, and new victories. But with everything he had learned, everything he had overcome, John was more ready than ever. The journey was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. So what do you think? What would you do if you were in John's shoes? Would you take the leap into the unknown, like John did, or would you continue to build on your current success? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to share this story with your friends and family. The best journeys are the ones we take together. Stay tuned for more, because this is just the beginning of the next chapter.